my gosh, this is such a great book. I really, really like the emphasis on food. There's such a richness, the diversity in Indonesia. Today we are eating nasi rawon. Hi friends, welcome to Makan and Meaning, where I endeavor to bring you book videos that are thoughtful, kind, and nuanced. Today we'll be talking about The Bird Woman's Palette by Laxmi Pamunjak. And oh my gosh, this is such a great book. Spoiler alert, I'll just talk a little bit about the book and then about my reflections. So this book talks about a woman who's the bird woman. She's an epidemiologist who studies specifically in this book about bird flu, and is set in Indonesia. So her department decides to send her to different cities in Indonesia to research on how there was one case of bird flu, a human patient who has bird flu. And as she travels with two of her friends, she eats the different specialties in each of the city. And I think I really, really like the emphasis on food, good food. And because of this book, I went to eat my first plate of nasi rawon today, and it was so good. So thank you, Laxmi, for introducing me to it. I think I've eaten rawon before, but it's like rawon and then the rice separately. So today I ate the nasi rawon. It was so good. So yeah, I would like to talk a bit about what I've learned. So firstly, I think what I've learned in this book is that there's such a richness, the diversity in Indonesia. I think forgive my ignorance, I didn't know that Indonesia was filled with so much diversity, because I think like whatever she wrote about, I would say maybe 80 to 90% I recognize in Singapore, even though we spell rojak differently. And I think kway teow goreng, we call it char kway teow. And yeah, so I think a lot of the food she talks about I recognize. And yeah, it was really nice to read about it and to know that Indonesia has such great culinary diversity, which is also a reflection of the people they have, right? So if you're curious, she went to Palembang, Surabaya, Pontianak, Medan, Banda Aceh, Singkawang, and Mataram. Apologies if I read the names wrongly. Oh, Bangkalan and Pamekasan. Yeah, so she ate different things there, including things like pempek, which I've never heard before. So every place has its own specialty. There's a special type of rojak Aceh, satay matang, rojak soto. So I think the first meal she had was rojak soto, and I thought it was really interesting that there was a conversation between her and a friend whether it's more rojak than soto or more soto than rojak. So that was really interesting. Yeah, I think one day I would like to travel with a friend, hopefully an Indonesian foodie friend, to these different places and eat the different delicacies and see how they differ from the dishes in Singapore. So I believe that every city will have their own version of food, like how Malaysians always say that Malaysian nasi lemak is better than Singapore nasi lemak. I haven't really eaten Malaysian nasi lemak, so I can't comment. If you know of a good place to eat Malaysian nasi lemak, let me know in the comments. And how like Penang char kway teow is supposedly superior to all other char kway teows. So yeah, I think I guess it's also a result of how over the centuries, I think there's cross-cultural influence as the people traveled from country to country. Their food, their culture assimilated in different countries. So yeah, that was interesting. And yeah, I could talk about a lot of things, but I thought I'll focus on a few things. So in the book, she talks about corruption in Indonesia, in the government. So I there's nothing I want to talk very much about, but I thought that I think it was interesting to read the book because Indonesia is such a large country, right? So as she travels from city to city, I realized that the difference in governing such a large country to, like, I guess where I am in Singapore, I guess it presents logistical challenges. So she had to fly for 2 weeks to 8 different cities, which was a very, very tight squeeze, and then eat all these nice food. So yeah, I realized that I guess governing a big country is quite difficult because there's a federal and a state um, coordination to take care of. So that's one reflection. And the other reflection is I think I never really realized the impact of discrimination until I read this book. I learned about Pangkar Sila youth. And how they are very anti-Chinese. In a chapter where it was in Medan, I believe. Yeah, I have a lot of Chinese Indonesian friends, so they're around my age. And when we were in school together, they did tell me, or like even as young adults, they did tell me that a lot of their parents sent them to Singapore when the anti-Chinese riots erupted in 1998. So if you're a lot younger, you might not know. I think in Indonesia, there was a time when there were anti-Chinese riots. I believe 1,000 people were killed. Took place largely in Medan, Jakarta, and Surakarta, I believe. Yeah. And some of my friends are still here today. So I think that we don't realize that racial riots can easily erupt in Singapore. So as a contrarian, I do believe that our state's narrative on like racial harmony is actually quite important, and that actually it is quite fragile. So contrary to popular belief, I do believe that I think racial tensions can be easily ignited, and it's important to constantly strive to maintain not just racial tolerance but racial harmony, which I think is difficult. Like, it is true that a lot of people think Racial Harmony Day is like a farce in schools, but I think it's important to at least have a day to do that, because at least there is the understanding that it's important to like leave aside a day to celebrate racial harmony. But I wonder, what else as a country we can do in Singapore to promote racial harmony, because it's true there are racial tensions. I think it's simmering under the surface. It's not talked about, and when it's talked about, people get slammed. So I wonder what are ways we can improve racial harmony. I don't know the solutions, but I think the state has made, everybody's trying very hard. So I believe there was one Hari Raya. I took part in this initiative by some youth interfaith thing. So I visited a stranger's home. So she was a Malay Muslim girl, and she was hosting another girl, which was me. So I went to her house early on the first day of Hari Raya. We ate together. Then we visited two other families. I sat in her family's car. Father drove us. So I mean, it was a little bit awkward because I was like a stranger. I mean, I am a stranger. And then I went to their houses and I don't know anybody, and everybody was talking Malay, so it was a bit hard. But she made an effort to talk to me, and some of her relatives talked to me in English as well. So I was very grateful for that. But it was a one-off thing. I never kept in touch with her. If you're watching this, I really, really thank you for inviting me to your house, the Hari Raya. Yeah, I wonder what we can do to promote racial harmony. I don't know. I think conversations are important, and talking about experiences honestly is important. And I think those in the majority race, which is the Chinese in Singapore, need to listen with an open heart and an open mind, and acknowledge that discrimination takes place, and try to use our Chinese privilege for good. So I mean, I don't know what the solution is. Let me know if you have ideas in the comments. But I do think that promoting racial harmony is important, because like if you watch my first video on Malayland, where I talk about how 60 years ago when Singapore divorced Malaysia, it was because, I mean, one of the reasons was because of the racial riots. And 60 years later, both in Singapore and Malaysia, racial tensions between the Malay people and the Chinese people still exist. Slightly different forms in both countries, but they still exist. So I think it's important to constantly be aware in a multiracial society how we can improve racial relations. And I think it's important because as a person who has access to Malay Muslim friends, I managed to have conversations with them, and it was very enlightening. And I mean, I'm very grateful for my friends who share openly about their experiences. And I realized that if you don't talk to people who are different from you, you wouldn't know things that take place in their community. And also, the other thing I want to talk about is in the book she talks about like morality police. So she was afraid that when she traveled to Banda Aceh, if she didn't cover her head as a Muslim woman, she might get caught. In the book, I was surprised to learn that she stated a unmarried woman and man kissing in an internet cafe got caught and flogged in public. So I was surprised to learn that about that, because I thought it was just the homosexuals who get flogged. So when I did some research on the internet, premarital sex, if they're caught, they get flogged in public, and I think about 300 people have been flogged so far, 300 people and above, and 39 were women. But yeah, I think what I wanted to reflect on was recently, I believe in the news they reported that this year, is it this year? This year, recently, in the news they reported recently that Indonesia is implementing a new law where premarital sex would be illegal, and that it's not just for the locals, it's also for tourists, and if their family members report them, they can be arrested. So I think there was a lot of controversy around it, and to me I was surprised because I thought that Indonesia was a secular country. So I was wondering where this like conservative law came from, but I think it's a bit more nuanced than that. So it's the largest Muslim populated country in the world with 227 million Muslims, I believe. Yeah, I think there is a trend of rising conservatism in recent years. So similar to Malaysia, where I talk about it a bit in Malayland, in Indonesia there is also rising conservatism in recent years. And yeah, I think in the past 10 to 15 years, when I read about the floggings in Aceh, I thought about the floggings in Terengganu as well. So yeah. So now that Indonesia has implemented this law, it's a little bit scary, but I think I'll still visit for the food. If I'm accompanied with like Indonesian friend, a local, to bring me around. I think the book really makes the food look really, really good. And I like that how, like in the book, she doesn't just talk about the good food. She also talks about food that would meh, or like not so good. And yeah, it's true, right? Because you have to eat all different types of food, both good and bad, to know what is good. And yeah, I'm so glad I ate a nasi rawon this morning. It was so good. And yeah, speaking of conservatism, yeah, I do wonder whether in Singapore, especially there's a wave of rising conservatism, not just in Christianity, which was what I've experienced firsthand, but also in Islam. Like my Malay Muslim friends say, like in the past, people don't really wear the tudongs, and there's a rising trend of people wearing the tudongs, which I mean is good for those who want to wear it, but I think it's not so good if you were to police other people, right? So I talk about a bit about policing, my friend being policed, in my first video in Malayland. So yeah, I wonder what rising conservatism means as a country in Singapore, because the people who suffer, like it worries me, not because I will be affected. The people who will be affected are my friends who are Malay Muslim, especially those who are women or queer Muslims. Yeah, so it does worry me a little bit. But yeah, I think this book was really nice. I really enjoyed the utter love for food, and her friends as well, the utter delight they that they took in eating, because I think in a digital age where on Instagram, even some of my ex-students, they tell me about how they think they're fat, but it's actually not them. It's social media that's conditioning their mind to think they're fat, even very, very slim girls. So I think if you read The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, it talks about how social media, especially Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, especially when there was it was launched in 2011 as apps on a smartphone, there was a rise in depression and anxiety, and also eating disorders, I believe, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, I think in an age where there's an overemphasis on body image, and with a lot of young girls having body image issues. And I guess in Asia, you know, like when I was young, my relatives called me fat. Even though I was a lot slimmer than what I am now. I think it's very difficult to grow up as a Chinese girl or just an Asian girl when relatives or even your own parents call you fat. I really enjoyed the narrator's love for food, the unabashed love for food, and then the friends' love for food. So one was a food and wine writing columnist, one was a chef, and yeah, I thought it was also very funny that even as they were researching on avian flu, like shortly after they leave the hospital, they will go and eat like duck or chicken. That was really, really funny. And I think after reading this book, I will be checking out more Indonesian food in Singapore and eating it with gusto, like the characters did. So, and I really liked that there was a happy ending. I thought the ending was a little bit rushed and a little bit weak, but I really, really liked the ending. Yeah, I like happy endings in general. And I kudos to Tiffany Tsao, the translator. It was such a great book. Very well translated. I really enjoyed it, and I really liked the humorous tone. It was very, very lighthearted, same as Malay Land, even though this is novel and that was non-fiction. Yeah, you can really sense the narrator's love for food in this book. It was so good. And one day I hope to go across Indonesia to try the rich diversity of food there. And yeah, if you're Indonesian, let me know what you think about the book if you have read it in the original language. Yeah, if you're not Indonesian, I would highly recommend you pick up this book. You'll learn so much about the country and the food, the great diversity of food in this book. So I really enjoyed this book, really enjoyed eating nasi rawon this morning. And yeah, if you'd like to support me and see more of these videos, you can like and subscribe this video. And if you want to, you're able to, you can donate to my Ko-fi at ko-fi/makan and meaning, or you can buy me a book and the link is in the bio. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!